Welcome back to the KickNPost YouTube channel and podcast. Today we're hopping right back into these Dynasty roster rankings with Kevin DeStefano's ranking. Let's hop into this roster right after the intro. So we're hopping right back into KickNPost Dyno roster rankings. Kev's team stacked on the starting lineup side of things, but let's hop deeper into what these roster value rankings are. You know, we got to come back with the ADR roster rankings. And first on the board is the GOAT, TB.4. Starting quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, led the league in passing yards last year. I have his ADR ranking at an 8. The GOAT is who he is. It's a dynasty roster. We don't know how much longer we have him on the field, unfortunately. I honestly believed that last year would have been the last year. He did retire, but the man's retirement was quicker than some lunch breaks I've gone on, right? It was right out, right back. Said he had unfinished business. The team's going to be missing a lot of their offensive line. Not good for a quarterback who's fairly immobile. We have Chris Godwin looking a little bit healthier, quicker than usual. You know, but to get the ball out, even with how quickly he releases the ball, they're going to be able to stop some type of pressure. I don't feel like he'll be a huge issue in most games. Still have the Buccaneers going to the playoffs easily. Still have the GOAT putting up pretty fantastic numbers for at least a year. But if they're not able to protect him, I could see him going right back into that retirement pool, staying home with the fam and the supermodel wife. So for the ADR ranking, got to give him an 8, you know. We don't have many years to look forward to TB12 playing football. Hopping right next into the next player, Naji Harris, 10 out of 10 ranking on the ADR roster scale. What more do you want from a running back? Fairly youthful, high usage, great pass catcher, runs between the tackles, got breakaway speed. I know what you'd want. An offensive line, a proven quarterback. Those are some of the things I would want. I feel like the usage is still going to be fairly high. I'm not sure how the red zone visits will look for a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers. I do feel like, again, usage will trump efficiency in this one. Usually we'll take efficiency, but the volume is worth it. Again, young running back will be a big focal point of the offense. We'll give the boy a 10 for that one. One of the controversial ratings I have on this one, Javonte Williams, I have him ranked at a 9. Would be a 10, but I have question marks. Why is this man always in a split backfield? Why did they re-sign Melvin Gordon? I get the connection between Melvin Gordon and Russell Wilson, Wisconsin Badger alumni, friends, but Javonte Williams was in a split backfield at North Carolina for pretty much the entire career, gets fairly decent draft capital to the NFL, and since he's entered the NFL, has been in a split backfield, and this was the year it was supposed to be wheels up for a guy like Javonte Williams. We're finally be able to see him with 100% of the workload, maybe 70% of the snaps at least. Now, starting the season, at least I'm expecting a 65 to 35% snap share, maybe a 55 to 45% snap share. Why can't we see this man get the bulk of the work? Got to find out. But in Dynasty, still a very young back. I'm pretty sure he's younger than Naji Harris, if I'm not mistaken, going into his second year. So still a lot to be seen. I think it's worth investing, and to acquire him off a team, it still takes a bag to get him from the owner. So ADR value ranking, have that boy at a 9. Another controversial one, Tyreek Hill is an 8 on my scale. Tyreek Hill, newly acquired Miami receiver, leaves the Kansas City Chiefs, leaves Patrick Mahomes, and in my opinion, leaves a lot of that fantasy ceiling by going over to the Miami Dolphins. He's not your typical PPR receiver. A lot of the love we have for Tyreek in fantasy is that at any point a 60-yard bomb is possible, right? Obviously, the scheme's going to be very different. We have Mike McDaniels out there in Miami, coming from that 49ers coaching tree. Maybe we'll see a lot more utility from Tyreek Hill. He has been used on jet sweeps in Kansas City. I'm expecting jet sweeps, bubble screens, passes right over the line of scrimmage, and having Tyreek do his yakability impression of Debo, but he's not the same build. So I have my question marks. I think all opportunity for deep balls are practically gone. Love Tua, but I've not been able to see that side of his game yet. Was it the receiving core? Was it the line? Maybe Tyreek Hill will be able to unleash that for Tua. But as presently constructed, I have Tyreek Hill losing a lot of dynasty value. And if you try to make trades as an owner of Tyreek Hill to move off of that asset, it's been very difficult this offseason in comparison to other off seasons when he was on the Chiefs. So I have my boy rated at an 8. Coming up next, we have T. Higgins, which is it preposterous that I have him ranked higher than Tyreek Hill on my scale? I have T. Higgins at a 9. Young, already broke out. Great situation. Great quarterback. Wide receiver 2 in an offense that will be throwing the ball a lot. Improved offensive line. Improved offense in general. Wheels up for T. Higgins. His ADP is creeping up in drafts. I think the last draft I did, T. Higgins was roughly a back-end third, early fourth round pick. In some dynasty drafts, I've seen him go out late second. At those prices, it's tough to invest in a wide receiver too, but I'm super in love with the talent, and I feel like for years to come, he'll be a very valuable asset on your team, and he'll probably be the most expensive wide receiver two in an offense to acquire for the next 3 to 4 years. Next ranking, Pat Friarmuth, Pat. Another Steeler player in this new youthful revamping of the Steelers offense. Pat Friarmuth is not a high volume tight end. What do I mean by that? A lot of his production is dependent on touchdowns. A lot of his production is dependent on red zone targets. You'll see many games where Pat Friarmuth will go the whole game with possibly 1 to 2 targets. You're hoping a new offense with Mitchell Trubisky and Kenny Pickett will lead to him being the more comfortable target in tough situations for quarterbacks that are struggling. Most young quarterbacks don't really think check down to the running back. They think easy target, open target, and usually tight ends are a little bit more athletically gifted than the linebackers that are covering them. So you'll be able to get Pat Friarmuth in space. Unless the volume goes up on Pat Friarmuth, I don't see the potential for him to really break out this year. I have him rated at a 7. Again, it's all dependent on how they use him in this new look offense for the Steelers. And again, that offensive line being bad, maybe he'll be the best situation to get the ball out to quickly and in space and see what he could do. Starting tight end, might finish top 10 as tight end, but as I've said before, the position is so watered down, I'm not even looking at that as like a win for a positional player. On to Keane and Allen, who we have rated at a 7. The route running is unbelievable. I feel like he'll be a high-producing wide receiver till the day he retires. Gives me a lot of Larry Fitzgerald vibes. Unfortunately, Larry Fitzgerald last year was not that productive, but was able to produce even way later into his career. He wins at the line of scrimmage. He wins based on his route running ability. He's in a high-octane offense with a lot of targets. There's him, Mike Williams, and not much behind that. Austin Eckler there as well, but I feel like he's always going to be able to produce for you at a very elite level. His price tag is roughly 5th round to 4th round. There was a trade in this league made for him to be acquired by this team. I'll put it up on the screen. I feel like it's a fairly decent price to pay for a receiver that could possibly be great depth for you to win the league. So I'm all about Keenan Allen. I have him rated at a 7, but that's partially because of the age factor. I feel like even though he is a winner, in Dynasty, age is always going to bring your value down. But I'd be willing to pay the price to have Keenan Allen as a very supplementary piece. On this roster, he's your wide receiver 3. So running out there with like a Keenan Allen, a T. Higgins, a Tyreek, that's great. And I say wide receiver 3, but I'm actually tripping because he's probably wide receiver 4. Because Michael Pittman on this roster, who I have at an 8, I'm projecting a huge breakout from this year. He had decent stats last year with Carson Wentz, but I believe the play action ability of Matt Ryan, that offense taking another step forward this year. I trust Matt Ryan way more than I trust Carson Wentz. I feel like this is the year. They didn't draft anybody to be immediate competition with him. Alec Pierce is a cool piece, but I don't see him as great competition for Michael Pittman. They bring back Tyreek Hill. I said Tyreek. My apologies. They bring back T.Y. Hilton. who we're still yet to see kind of like what he'll be. But Michael Pittman, yeah, this is the year. This is the year. Big things coming for the guy on the hidden stats. This man's great against man coverage, great against zone coverage, and with improved offensive schemes with Matt Ryan, sky's the limit. I have him ranked at an 8, but I could easily see him be a 10 out of 10 asset at the end of this season for the Colts. Moving on to Kirk Cousins. Have that boy rated at an 8, man. I've been very disrespectful to Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins has been a perennial overachiever. Wherever you draft him in drafts most years, he'd be able to outproduce that ADP. He has Kevin O'Connell coming over, who's going to scheme a lot of things in the passing game to make life easier for Kirk Cousins. Great weapons. Adam Thielen apparently is feeling a renaissance of health. Justin Jefferson out there. KJ Osborne took a huge step for them last year. Dalvin Cook still in the backfield. And if he goes down, Alexander Madison has proven himself to be more than a capable backup. I feel like Kirk Cousins is going to be one of my favorite targets late draft, especially in Superflex, to acquire if I decide to wait on the quarterback position. I'm all about starting Kirk Cousins and Matt Ryan as my 2 quarterbacks and fleshing out the rest of those positional players if that's my strategy, right? So Kirk Cousins rated at an 8 on the ADR scale. In many of these videos, I've talked about QBs being currency. I've talked about how important it is in Superflex to kind of not only have your starting quarterbacks, but be aware of the late quarterbacks falling in drafts that you could stash on your bench in a pinch or with the opportunity for them to break out. It sounded like Kevin took my advice on this. QBs are currency. But unfortunately, he invested in the cryptocurrency version of quarterbacks. What do I mean by that? He bought the Dogecoin. He bought the Shiba of quarterbacks and is just hoping for the 1000x return if something is to happen. We got Jimmy G and John Wilford. Both those guys I have rated as a 3. Why did I pull them together? Because Jimmy G and John Wilford are not only backups, but you're hoping for perfect situations for them to start. With John Wilford, it's obviously a Matthew Stafford injury. You're hoping that with the keys to an offense of that many weapons, he'll be able to produce at a starting quarterback level for you. I have no belief in that. Unfortunately, I feel like he might not even be the QB2 on that roster. There's a lot to be seen if a Matthew Stafford won't be able to play. And then with Jimmy G, they've handed the keys over to Trey Lance, and all we're hoping for is a Jimmy G trade, right? Of course, if Trey Lance gets hurt, we've seen Jimmy G's peak as well. Not something you really want to invest in fantasy. So for Jimmy G, you're hoping he gets moved to another team and becomes a starter. And as the offseason moved on, the chances of that became very, very slim. So he did not take my advice in investing in a good backup quarterback. And looking at the rest of the roster, on bye weeks, he might have to start one of these bench players that he has. And looking at the bench, it is also very shoddy. You don't have many guys that you'd want to put in that super flex spot in a pinch when your quarterback is on bye. Which, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, if your team is good enough, you lose 2 weeks with those bye weeks. That's not horrible, but he really didn't give himself an opportunity to win those bye weeks. We go into Sony Michelle, who's projected to be the running back 3 for the Miami Dolphins. Offense is still unknown. He's shown the opportunity to produce in an offense, but RB3 on the Miami Dolphins is not really where I want to be. You have Chase Edmonds and Raheem Mostert ahead of him, so that's why I feel like a rating of 4 is a little bit generous. But again, we've seen him produce an instance with the Rams last year, decently the first year and a half with the Patriots, but not really somebody I'd be comfortable putting in my lineup to start any week. Then you have Daryl Williams, who's the running back 3 for Arizona. Hasn't shown much in his career, and he played for the Chiefs, one of the best offenses in the league for the last 4 to 5 years. So to get moved to Arizona and still not be able to lock up that backup spot. Right now it belongs to Benjamin, according to reports. That doesn't give me much room to be excited for Daryl Williams anymore. So I have him rated as a 3. Myles Gaskin, huge fall from grace. Starting running back for the Miami Dolphins last year. Started for them the year before. Now he's looking to be the RB4 on that roster. Possibly not even making the roster. Getting a lot of run in preseason, mostly because he's the RB4 in that offense. So it's tough to see that. Have him rated at a 3. He's getting close to being waiver wire material, though. We hop into Alexander Madison. Again, not a bad shout for the bench. Probably one of the top 3 backup running backs you want to own on a roster. But again, his value is all dependent on Dalvin Cook getting hurt. And we can't be out here projecting for Dalvin Cook injuries and that being the only way that our players will be valuable, especially when he'll be called on to start at some point for this roster. So it's tough to see him as one of these guys that Kevin will be depending on to play at the back end of the year. Have him rated as a 5, but again, great asset if Dalvin Cook goes down, but it's solely dependent on Dalvin Cook going down. Then we hop right into CEH, have rated as 7. The backfield in Kansas City is very murky. They signed Ronald Jones. He's been getting a lot of run with the second team, though, so it might still be CEH's job. We've had a huge ascension of Isaiah Pacheco. Great reports in camp, running with the first team in the red zone, so he might be making the backfield even more murky. Then you have Jerick McKinnon, who got a lot of run in the playoffs when CEH was supposed to be back and healthy. So you have 4 running backs that could all get touches in this backfield, making CEH a possibly low volume running back who already doesn't have great upside, already is in an offense where the quarterback isn't likely to check down to the running back. I'm not loving his situation. The only reason he has a 7 is because he's been the RB1 for them before, and when in doubt, side with the guy who has the continuity with the team. But I could easily see him being a backup halfway through the season. If Isaiah Pacheco is really the guy that's being projected in camp, he could eclipse a guy like CEH and be on the field more often with the starting offense, which would be horrible for this roster. Fortunately for him, I made this video later, Brian Robinson has been ascending up the Washington Commanders depth chart. I have him rated as a 5. Way possible that if I make this video after the first season of football, that Brian Robinson would be a 7. He's running with the starting team. We're seeing Antonio Gibson on special teams. We're seeing Antonio Gibson running deep into preseason games with the third team of the Commanders. Brian Robinson might have the first and second down role on this offense. And if that is the case, he might be the steal of this draft. I'm pretty sure Brian Robinson was a post-15th round pick in this Dynasty startup. And for you to possibly get the starting running back for a team back there, immense steal. So right now I have him ranked at a 5 because we haven't actually seen it play out on the field yet. But if it does, it's easily a 7, right? Hop right into the next player, Jamison Crowder. He's waiver wire material. We were really excited over here with Jamison Crowder joining the Bills. We remember Jamison Crowder being a PPR monster for the Washington now Washington Commanders. Played for the Jets, had games, had stints, but dealt with a lot of injuries. And then with the Cole Beasley departure in Buffalo and him joining that team, we thought it'd be wheels up. Jamison Crowder in the slot, no question, probably bringing out a roster of Stephon Diggs, my boy from UCF, right? Playoff performance of the century, Gabe Davis, and then probably Jamison Crowder. But now we're hearing reports that Isaiah McKenzie is balling in practice and that they're putting him all over the field. And it's looking like it'll be a lot more of Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, Isaiah McKenzie, right? And even their rookie that they drafted, Khalil Shakir, that we're really high on over here, being on the field, and Jamison Crowder really just being a just-in-case type of player. And if that's the case, bench isn't even worth a spot of holding Jamison Crowder. Even though we love the talent and love what he presents for quarterbacks, if he's not playing, he's not worth it. And he's an aging wide receiver at that, not very young. So he might be waiver wire material, hence the 2 rating. And then we have DJ Chark, former Jacksonville Jaguars, signed a 1-year deal with the Detroit Lions. Jamison Williams has been announced to be on the reserve NIL list or PIL list, so he will not be playing to start the season. He's carved out a role in practice, done good in offseason. With a team that's lacking on offensive talent, he could carve himself out a little role in that offense. I have him rated as a 4 currently. That could go up if he shows some of the stints of what he had with Gardner Minshew in Jacksonville. Unfortunately, last year was an injury-ridden season. Started off the year, then hurt himself, was out for the whole season afterwards. But we've seen DJ Chark ascend to great talent. Posted a 1,000-yard receiving season before. So with that potential being there, I'd give him a 4. Not the highest believer in Jared Goff. But again, it's him, it's Amon-Ra St. Brown. TJ Hawkinson, DeAndre Swift. The wide receiving core is really not much to speak of in Detroit, so he'll definitely be starting and can carve himself a role out there. And then we close out the roster with Byron Pringle. Yes, Byron Pringle, who could not carve out a solidified role with Patrick Mahomes. And we're supposed to believe with the Chicago Bears, led by Justin Fields, worse offensive line, worse weapons, worse coaching, that he's going to break out and be somebody of value in fantasy. I pass. Byron Pringle is also waiver wire material, not needing to be rostered. He's an ADR rating of 2. I thought about giving him a 1, but the only thing is that he will be starting and he will be playing. So there's a possibility he'll catch a ball and fall into the end zone. But I want nothing to do with Byron Pringle. His taxi squad is devoid of talent. Amari Rodgers is the biggest guy on that taxi squad. Jeremy Ford is interesting, had a fun preseason, but that backfield is currently Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, Dearness Johnson. If Kareem Hunt gets moved, Jeremy Ford goes up the list a little bit, but I still would have it be Nick Chubb, Dearness Johnson, and then Jeremy Ford. But yeah, taxi squads are rated a 3. Not much talent on the taxi squad. And then 2023 draft picks, he kept his first-round draft pick. That's a 4 for me. The rest of his draft picks have been moved in trades. So overall ADR rating of 122 for Kevin, which unfortunately at this moment puts him bottom of the list that I've been accruing right here. Right? Again, this scale is not how good your team will be. This is just a value scale based on how I see the players on your team. I'd like to thank y'all for all the support. We've been going up with these videos lately. Check out our UFC reaction to Usman getting knocked out, losing the middleweight belt. Losing the welterweight belt to Leon Edwards. Check that out. We'll have the card thrown up here. Check out our New York Giants schedule predictions. Have the card right up here as well. And check out the rest of the videos on this channel. A lot of content coming soon. I recently joined the BDGE Bash. I was able to get into a rare league, League 5, Pick 10. A lot of content will be coming surrounded around the BDGE Bash and the BDGE League. So stay tuned for that. And we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace.